Welcome, thanks everyone for coming. It's another one of our scale-up events where we bring together hopefully a load of e-com, fast-growth scale-up companies where you can network between yourselves. And we're going to try and do three things today. We've got Tom from Tom's Trunks. Where's he gone? He's at the back there, sorry. He's going to give us a story of how their scale-up journey's gone, how they founded the company and the history of where they've got to today. And then we're hearing from Alex at Taxually. He's going to give you something to take away today, where hopefully it can help you grow and scale your company where we are now, something for the present. And I'm going to talk about the future of AI and e-commerce, and hopefully the things you can do in the future that can take your company to new, bigger and better places. We have a short break in between, some more snacks. Do network, grab anyone on the team if you've got any questions, and there'll be some tours of the facility at the end to see our new sorting machine and conveyor belts. So without further ado, I'll introduce Tom from Tom's Trunks.
Firstly, thank you very much, James and James, for having me. So we've been working with James and James for 2 years, and I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I've actually never been here before. But to me, I'd say it's a good thing because that means they're doing their job right, and I shouldn't have to worry about it. So I'm going to talk to you about Tom's Trunks. Firstly, just a disclaimer: we do not sell swimming trunks. That is a slightly confusing thing. So what we do and why. So I suppose if I just do a quick introduction about myself and the brand. So I'm 22. I started Tom's Trunks when I was 14. Initially as more of a just like a little hobby. I never thought I'd be 22 and still working in it and actually be able to take a salary out of it. It was just initially something fun and to fund like GCSE summer kind of thing. So we founded in 2014 and we're on a mission to produce the world's most comfortable beach and bedwear with no impact on the environment. And we kind of stick to 4 core principles, which is slow fashion. So that means we make stuff, in my opinion, to a really high quality. And we want people to buy once. Now in retail, that's not that common. I'm beginning to learn that's probably not a very good model. But we really want to make stuff really strong, and we'll offer free returns to any customer, no matter how old they are. So I think this week we received a customer that had an 8-year-old pair of trousers, and they're pretty worn out. They should have just bought a new pair, but we did repair them for free. And then we believe in ethical factories. So that's everything to kind of understanding our supply chain from where the cotton comes from all the way through to sending it out and like how much carbon it takes for each raw mail package to go through and stuff like that. And then plastic free and single-use plastic free throughout the supply chain. And then sustainable practices is more about what the factories are doing when they're making our stuff. So we only use natural fibres and natural dyes, and that really sticks into having no impact on the planet. So the story starts really when I was 14. I was on holiday in Kenya, so my dad worked for a charity doing like animal conservation, and I went along with him, which was, I must say, a trip of a lifetime to first be in Kenya. But I stupidly didn't bring any shorts, so I went in trousers, and it was not a great idea. So I found some shorts on the beach, and there's 2 great things. They're pretty good value and really, really comfy. And I bought a pair and I thought, oh, these are great. And then I non-stop wore them, and my dad started calling them Tommy's Trunks because he was like he was trying to like work and like wanted me to look slightly professional. I was wearing bright red shorts like today, but in red. I think he thought they weren't very professional. But I loved it, and that's kind of like the name came around, was Tommy's Trunks. After that trip, whilst on the trip, I bought 10 pairs back and just sold them for double the amount. I always had a bit of a buzz, like from a young age, of I just love making profit. I don't know what it was. Like it really gave me a great feeling. So then this is kind of the beginning. Obviously, being 14 and trying to buy volume of stuff, most people didn't trust me. So I found I'd have to like have this like fake WhatsApp persona of trying to be really, really professional. And no one ever knew my age until I met them recently. They're like, we thought you'd be a bit older by now. And so literally, I would buy them, and we initially weren't designing anything. We were literally buying off the beach. I would then get this guy, Shikara, to sew a label on, and then people that were working for the company and the conservation company would bring stuff back in their suitcases. So I wasn't dealing with any import stuff or anything like that. So probably very illegal, but it kind of worked out. And then we weren't doing anything online. We were doing all like literally word of mouth, and we were using an app called Depop, so selling through Depop. And then I was like, well, sales were a bit slow. Depop wasn't really working, so I decided to have like a market stand and a pop-up. And then I realised that gazebos are really expensive, so I tried to make my own gazebo. Health and safety hazard, never ever doing that again. So that's kind of like the beginning. The dates are actually wrong on this. It's from 2014 to 2017 we were operating, where we were just bringing stuff over in suitcases. And then 2017, I was kind of giving a search online, and we were finding the quality was going downhill from what we were buying in Kenya as we were buying more. So I was like, well, let's try and work out how we can improve quality. And I went and just Googled loads of different suppliers, got samples made, and I found this guy in China making Turkish towels. And I was like, oh, that fabric probably works. So I sent him an email, and he then found someone to sew it, and then we did our first big order. And this is, for me, a really pivotal time in business, because we went from kind of me running it as no business to then investing. We invested about £5,000, which was all the money we'd ever profit made, into the business to buy this first stock. And because we couldn't reach minimum order quantity, we had 2 colours and 2 products. But in my opinion, that was the best point of the business, because I didn't have any big spreadsheets of SKUs and all this stuff. But that was it. So we bought 1,000 pieces. You can work out margins then, but they're not good anymore, unfortunately. 1,000 pieces, brought them back, and then we set up a website. Now this website was absolutely awful. I wish I'd known about Shopify earlier on. You'd literally send an email to us, and I'd then send my bank details, and then they would fulfill it. And at that point, I was just packing orders myself. And we then, after building a gazebo, we thought that wasn't a good idea. So I bought some horse trailers. I actually picked this one up for free, and we got one on Facebook Marketplace, converted them in, and we then do festivals. So for us, in our business, we've got 2 parts of our business. We've got the online side, which is 90%, and then festivals, which is 10%. Now, recently I've built a small team, and everyone in the company hates the way we do festivals, because they're it's such a waste of time. But in my opinion, I love it, and I mean, who doesn't want to go and party and be technically work? But it also, for me, feeds a lot of online sales. So we don't do any pay-per-click. All of our advertising at the moment is organic. We do pay influencers for stuff, but I personally, when I try and explain to them, I think that's accredited to festivals. So this year we're doing 48 festivals, and that's quite a lot of physical exposure out. So that was 2018, and that was really when we started motoring. We then, in 2018, got sued by Tommy Hilfiger, and we rebranded to Tom's Trunks. Massive rebrand. But yeah, so that was kind of 2018. And I actually prefer the name now, and it works better on Google, it's less to type. And then so we're still not in James and James yet, I had this concept, so with the idea of having no waste and being as sustainable as possible, I wanted to send the product out as without any packaging. So we launched, I would do a demo, but it's hard to hold it. Basically, it's a bit like a Mac in a sack. The product actually folds into its pocket. We launched that in 2018, and our returns went from being at kind of 12% to being at 50%, purely because the product came increased. And I think we just probably didn't advertise it yet, well enough. So I want to try that again one day. But I think the customers aren't really there yet. But the idea was that it was literally no waste. The label would be screen printed onto the pocket, and then you've got a bespoke product. But obviously for returns and stuff, it then have to be a non-returnable good, which I'd be pretty keen for. And then in 2020, I often get struck by bargains, and I saw, obviously this is during COVID, a shop in Cambridge for rent, and it was literally pretty much free. So I was like, oh, let's do it. Worst decision. I didn't realise what went into having a shop and all the liability. So we tried doing the retail stuff to feed the pop-up, because there was no festivals on that year. It was a real waste of time. But the great thing with COVID is TikTok kind of started going really well. I mean, actually our engagement was pretty bad there. But we then started using influencers. So as a way of thinking what's not going to work for festivals, we then moved on to TikTok and literally just selling through influencers. And that is our main sales technique now, is selling through influencers and doing really organic technique, organic content. And then 2020, we moved to James and James, and Ram got us on board. And that, if I'm honest, it was before, so we were doing 200 orders, and my mum and her friend were actually packing the orders, because I was finishing college and then was doing a degree apprenticeship, and was working in Derby, and we were operating out of my parents' house in Cambridgeshire. So my mum kind of cut quits and said, I don't know, I can pack this anymore, like it's taking a lot of my time in the day. So we moved to James and James, and we didn't realise actually, so far it's actually probably made us a lot more efficient, because we're then focusing on that, not on all the fulfillment stuff that is super fun. And then in 2022, we've scaled up our events more, so we've done more and more events, doing, I said, 48 events this year, which is great, hopefully for marketing. And then we moved over to Shopify in 2022, so we did have I mentioned the website. We used to use WooCommerce, and actually I was like, oh, WooCommerce is way cheaper. We then moved on to Shopify, and I love Shopify. But yeah, so moved over to Shopify, and then we kind of got really good growth at the moment, which is really great to see. Launched a new website and kind of tracking on a much higher order than 2022. And then in 2023, we extended our product lines. So up until 2023, we literally did have 5 colours, shorts, trousers. It's pretty small line. I do love having like a really small line, but we've realised that you can probably extend your revenue by having more products. Wasn't rocket science, must admit, but. And then we kind of pushed. I think last week, 2 weeks ago, we had one of our best orders, weekly orders of 3,000 orders, and that's kind of our target now. What we want to track at is 3,000 weekly orders. And then team expansion, so kind of like building on our team. And then we're now having a massive push on sustainability and like our whole supply chain of how we can be better. So our goal is to be, I'm going to do the B Corp stuff first, and then,
I'll go back to you, mate.
So in line with that kind of sustainable production, we are aiming to be B Corp certified. So we're just starting the process now of that, and that kind of, for me, is like verification that our process is actually good. Because I think it's really easy to preach about sustainability, but actually what classifies it. So fingers crossed that will go through really well, and then I think we can push it. And we're also planning to be carbon neutral by the end of this year. So we're having our own rewilding platform, and that's kind of like where we're putting all of our pre-existing profit back into to try and like really be as good as we can. And then, as I mentioned, we offer free repairs. So we have, which is now actually ended up being a fulfillment operation itself, with the stuff that customers send back and is unstockable, we then will sell on. So what we've done is we've listed it on another page on our website, and we will do like repair stuff, fix stuff, like improve stuff, and resell it on. And we find it's a massive marketing thing right now, but also it's generating quite a lot of revenue. So we'll sell our pre-loved stuff for 20% less than retail, and it's really, customers are loving it, and it's also getting rid of waste for us, which is really good. I think it'd be really cool to see like this in FCs as well, if they could bring this maybe one day. It's like having the return stock be resell. I know there's a lot of apps and stuff going on around that. And yeah, that's pretty much Tom's Trunks and our journey so far.
What an incredible journey to start at the age of 14 and to build a business that's now able to be core certified and changing that product there. So again, another round of applause to Tom. Thank you very much. Everyone's been using some of it, if not chatting with AI bots on Hermes' website or something similar, trying to get their parcel delivered. I'm going to talk about the future of AI in e-commerce, which is quite exciting actually. You start reading into it. I don't normally speak with notes, I hate doing it, but for reasons that will become evident towards the end, I've unfortunately been forced into it today. So, brief introduction. I'm going to talk a bit about the history of AI, where does it come from, how we're using it today. There's quite a lot of AI already in use that we don't necessarily think of as AI. How does it affect e-com, like the actual selling of stuff, and also the customer? I think the customer is worth looking at separately from e-commerce. Impact on jobs is something that is going to come out quite a lot, I think, as far as employment. Have we started using AI yet? I know a dev team have started looking at some automated.
Not quite.
I've got another slide there on ethics, which I think is worth addressing, especially with the impacts on jobs, and then a quick summary. So, to crack on with the beginning of AI, what is AI? I'll let you kind of read that. It's a simulation of human intelligence. I think that's really important. It is a simulation of intelligence. The machine is, arguably on your definition, it's never actually intelligent. It's just using, it's a machine to learn from experience. And what does learning from experience mean for a machine? Because machines think in very different ways to human. We interact with ChatGPT and we think it's a human. If you actually look at what goes on, it's very hard to understand inside the computer, but what's going on inside it is very, very different from how the human brain works. And if we go back to kind of simple rule-based automation, going back to the point we're saying, if I write in this cell, add up the number I've written in the next cell, that's a rule, and the computer's following the rule, that's automated. You can extend that rule to a more complicated set of rules based on predictions of machine learning, where you say, well, look at the history of the stock market for the past 100 years and extrapolate the future based on that. And you get a machine-based learning prediction. And you extrapolate that further and say, look at all of the language ever recorded on the internet, and then draw a conclusion of what word comes next from this word, which is basically what ChatGPT does. It literally looks at extrapolations of, well, if this word is here, what word comes next based on all of the context around where that word's ever been used based on the question you asked. And that's what it's doing. It's not actually, doesn't actually understand the question. It's just a predictive text, basically, all that. And it's bloody impressive. I think you'll be, it is impressive. But that's what's going on. This has been around in science fiction since the dawn of time, as of Asimov and various different writers. And it's always in horror films. Terminator, which I fondly remember Terminator 2 and 3 also, which are quite like juvenile 12 rated films. If you watch the original Terminator, it's really quite a dark and sinister film about the rise of robots taking over the world. And there's also some concerns of people saying from AI specialists around whether that will or won't happen in the future. Before we go, if we can go back, I just want to talk about one ethics question, just to tease you with this slight ethics question before we go on to the bottom. Have anyone heard of the trolley problem? Mm-hmm. A couple of people. So the trolley problem, if you've not heard it, it's a bit dark and sinister, but imagine there's a train plummeting along the track towards 20 people that are all tied to the rails. That train will kill those 10 people tied to the rails. You're stood on a bridge just further up the tracks from those people, and you can grab the big fat guy next to you and chuck him over the bridge, and he'll land in front of the train and derail it, and therefore saving those 10 people's lives. Do you pick up the man next to you and throw him over the bridge? Is that murder? Is that a good thing? Could you consciously say that was the moral positive to save 10 people's lives to do one? And when we ask computers to drive cars, we're basically saying, you're going to crash into the car in front of you, you might injure that person, or you could swerve and hit the old man on the sidewalk, but he's older, so that's okay, because he's older and there's a child in the car. Where do we draw this moral dilemma? As a human, you just react, and we just accept that humans are humans, and we make mistakes, and whatever happens, happens. As a machine, it's literally programmed what to do. And so there's this question of, hang on a minute, that we're programming the machine, what do we do? I have an answer of how you solve this, but generally there's a big debate on what we do with the trolley problem, which comes into AI more and more so as it learns what it thinks it should do and we control. So AI in e-commerce is surprisingly prevalent already. Personalised recommendations. Anyone's been on Facebook in the last decade, you will get adverts aimed at you based on what you do in quite a scarily uncanny way. I don't know if it's AI, but it's certainly on the basis of machine learning. It's looking at patterns of regular expression matching. Chatbots and virtual assistants. This is an area that's really, I think, come forward in the last 2 years, or the last 12 months. But chatbots have been around for a long time in various different remits. Fraud detection, we don't really think of that, but every time someone puts through a MasterCard, Visa card on your site, there was fraud detection going in the background, and that is looking at pattern matching. Which country is the card being processed in? Has that person travelled to that country? What kind of spending does that person normally have as a habit? There's a huge amount of machine learning that goes into credit card fraud detection. And inventory management optimization. There's kind of reporting, there's lots of apps and things coming out now. You'll be just on the platform around looking at expected expected things in the future based on predictive things from the past. And pricing optimization, anyone who's booked a flight on EasyJet will know that you try and tinker with the price depending on whether you looked at the website earlier, whether everybody else is going there, whether it's sunny this week, various other parts. And hotel market has a huge amount of optimization in pricing too. So there's a lot of this, we should call it machine learning / AI, depending on how advanced we can get, in the world of e-commerce already. But it is set to advance even further. NLP, natural language processing, which is what you experience. How many people have actually chatted with ChatGPT or asked it to do something? Is that kind of good majority now? That's what you experience there, natural language processing, and that's probably the latest incarnation of AI today. Image recognition, I'm not quite sure why I put on the slide, because image recognition, Google's been doing that for about 10 years. What's coming out now is actually image generation, where you say, paint me a picture of my dog sat in a car with an umbrella, and it will literally paint you a picture in a style of Picasso, whatever you ask for, with those elements in there. And they're really, really quite good, like, to the point where you wouldn't necessarily easily be able to tell at least that a computer had generated that image. And augmented reality, which is kind of Pokemon Go, if anyone remembered doing that a couple of years ago. But more and more of that, there's some clothing now where you can take a body scan of yourself with a mobile phone, and it will then show you images, augmented reality images of how the clothing might fit, based on you taking a 3D scan with a camera, which is quite cool. I don't know whether that's going to drastically stop returns. People go, oh yeah, that looks rubbish, I won't buy it. But who knows? The future then will be cool. So where is it going? And I think customization is going to be a huge part of it. Marketing is becoming. We talk about account-based marketing, or individualized marketing is a huge area where we're sending out bespoke marketing. There's lots of apps now for LinkedIn that will send people spam basically, but spam based on specifically the job title, what they do, where they've worked, and everything else by automatically generating content. But we see more and more of it in the marketing, where we're generating automatic follow-up emails or recommendations for clients based on that part. If anyone's watched the recent Black Mirror, Joan is Awful, I don't know if anyone's followed that. A lot lighter than the older stuff used to be, but that is, I guess, the nth degree. It's about how Netflix have created a TV program that is literally about you, with the sole concept of making it so personalised that you're compelled to watch it, where we actually get not just recommendations that are personalised, but genuine personalised content pushed to us. And I think as much as that is a forward-looking thing for the future, I think we're probably not too far away from that coming. Customer service is one of the big areas that we're probably experiencing an improvement. I remember the days when you'd chat with the little robot and you'd say, where is my parcel? And it would say, oh, enter your tracking number. And you'd say, I don't have a tracking number because of this, or you'd put the one in and you go, great, you can call our support team. And I'm like, brilliant. I spent 5 minutes chatting with the robot and you told me you can't help and to talk to the support team. And it only had about 10 different things it could say and it really didn't guess. I think we've got a long way now moving forward in how that works in customer experience. So that is a huge change in that. And voice assistants. We're not quite at the point yet where you can chat to Siri and say, please can you organise a lovely dinner out for my wife and send some flowers around for Valentine's next week. But I don't think we're going to be too far off being able to have voice assistants that will act as a personal PA. And again, anyone who's watched Black Mirror, some of the older episodes, there's a lot of content that they had. This conception of the future of digital assistants that live in your head. You could talk to and would organise your life for you, so everyone has their own PA. And I think we're probably not too far away from that either. On the customer service side, support is getting more instantaneous. I think that's one of the benefits for customers. You can generally run 24/7, 365 support at no additional cost. We're looking at how we support Australia and other countries as we grow, and I think this would be a huge tool for us to use in there. Sentiment analysis, not one I thought of. They're getting very good now at not just replying, but also working out how you're feeling based on what you're saying. So that the response can be tailored to how you feel, or even further than that, the response can actually have an NPS score in a way of how are people feeling about the brand or what's going well, what's going bad. And currently, we do that through surveys and reporting, where how you're feeling it. How much do you like your interaction today, 1 to 10? But can you imagine a world where actually you could get a report with a computer saying, You know, having listened to all of the emails and all of the phone calls from your business for the last 2 weeks, these are the most common things people are actually complaining about. When we go and ask the team, what are people talking about now? You know, what's the biggest complaint? But to actually have that statistically driven by computers listening on calls, I think will be a huge game changer in pushing customer service to a new level. Which brings to jobs. There's a lot of jobs you realise in the world where all we really do is kind of take one thing and write a response to it and push something back. And customer service is one where we're already seeing attrition in that. There's some AI coming out that isn't just creating paintings and pictures, but there's some AI now where you can say, create me an advertising campaign for this new product aimed at 15-year-olds in this sector, and it will actually create the words, the content, and the imagery for an advertising campaign. Now, some of it's not that great, but if we're starting to eat into creative jobs and not just eating into the jobs of people who are replying with text, then we are moving towards a world where actually what percentage of jobs will this impact? Anyone who's used ChatGPT knows it's not that easy, that you can't just ask it a question and answer with a perfect answer. Sometimes it takes iteration, sometimes it never really comes out. So there is new skills of actually emerging jobs like AI engineers, either people working on the back-end code or people actually asking the right questions. Much like business coaches, you ask the right question, you get the right response. You ask a bad question, you get the bad response. And I think the way it creates it, one of the things that slightly scared me is ChatGPT is model based on reading everything on the internet and then using that to deduce what must come next. So if you ask it to write your website for your fulfillment centre, it writes a pretty good website, it's not terrible. But once that's happened for 20 years, or 10 years, or even 3 years, it's reading stuff it's written to write more stuff that it wants to write. And there must be a circle where it just starts writing absolute nonsense, publishing nonsense to the web. And if no one's checking it, you end up in this downward spiral where humans don't actually write most of the content in the world. It's all written by machines that are learning from the machines. And you can see a world where the machines start to take over, talking in a way that only the machines understand them and we don't really get, which is a little bit concerning. But I think there is a higher level of this. We're still very much, although it's very clever when you read it, a lot of what it's doing isn't intellectual thought. It's not genuinely solving problems. It's replying. And I think that is where the humans still have a different way of working. Our brains work in an inherently different way how machine learning works. Which brings me back to ethics. Data privacy has been a breach in one country recently where data was sent to one country for processing and they sent that somewhere else and we end up with all these GDPR things. And, well, a little bit, I don't think so much the law on it is the issue. I think the problem is that Facebook, Google and all these other companies, their entire business model. There's a good saying, when you buy something you pay for it. And if you get a service completely for free, then basically you're the one paying for it. So you're paying for it one way or another and you pay for it with the data. So if you're using Facebook for free, you're using Google search for free, you're using these other services for free, they're taking your data and that data is worth something. And I'm sure you've all had the slightly concerning message where you've been on WhatsApp and said something which isn't read by humans, but they haven't said that there are machines reading your messages, and then you go on Facebook and it's telling you the thing you were just talking about. And we start to get this slightly awful world where no one reads our stuff, it's completely encrypted and private, yet the machines seem to know everything we're thinking before we get to think it, which is a slightly, dark way of looking at the world of privacy. Algorithmic bias. Some of that is generated, so this is the concept that if you feed a load of web content that was written by a load of racists into a machine, the machine will inherently be racist because it's reading racist content. And now we have to employ people to try and dial that out. So then we have to code the machine to try and ignore some of the racist bias. But of course the people coding the machine are inherently biased themselves in different ways. And so it's kind of like, well, where is the middle ground? Like, how do we stop the machine being biased if the machine is self-biasing itself? And we've also got engineers paid to bias it. So you end up with a kind of like, what is ethically the right thing? And responsible practices. The trolley problem is a great example of a responsible practice. What do you do? My answer to that is you do nothing. You let whatever collision or whatever was going to happen, put the brakes on and hope for the best. And you say the computer just stops. Because that's the only way you can morally just go, well, that's what a human probably would have done. But that aside, there's probably other people that argue differently. But there is a huge debate to have around how machines and machine learning is used responsibly, and how we don't end up with machines slowly taking over humans to the end of the world. Which kind of brings me to the end of the presentation. And the reason I've got these notes is because these slides have got far too many words on them. And the reason that's true is because every single word of this, bar two, was written by AI. All of the pictures are generated by AI, and the presentation was entirely put together by AI. It was the third attempt. Any questions? I'm not saying I'm an expert on the topic, but I'm happy to try and answer anything you've got.
I have one.
Yeah.
Will James and James be using AI for?
Yeah, we are. So we're already looking at some of the machine learning aspects of how we do picking, to make sure we're picking the right items in the right, not the right items, always get the right items, making sure we're walking the shortest route and putting items in the right place, so you can look at historic patterns of whether those products, how quickly do those products sell, how fast they're likely to sell, and then working out where you locate them to reduce that. And I think realistically within customer service and in our tech support internally, one of our developers is currently running as a trial. If you email tech and ask for a tech support message internally, a human replies. But before the human replies, it actually puts notes in written by ChatGPT. And some of them are pretty shocking, some of them are pretty good. So we don't let anyone see them yet, it's purely as a trial. Some of them are quite funny. It's like, go tell them, go tell them they can't have it. And it's like, wait a minute. So the office totally funny. Some of them are quite funny. But yeah, I think it will avail to every company. I'm sure marketing, Chris, will use.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT a lot. Never to write a full blog post because it doesn't. Yeah, it turns out like that, and you can often tell that a robot's written. It doesn't really have a human touch to it, but I'm sure that will change in the next year or two. I'm sure I'll be able to write a lot better than me in a year or two, which is quite scary.
I can't imagine ChatGPT getting your style. You've got a very distinctive style, I think.
Thank you.
I'd be, that would be really scary. I think the last slide is really powerful actually, it's those questions that
What do you do ethically?
and line questions, that is how do we answer those questions, and how are those questions going to get answered?
I mean, there's an element,
You know,
the Facebook one is a great one. You know, Facebook's brilliant because you get served stuff you want to see. You know, if you're interested in motorbikes and cars, you get to see really great content that other people who are interested in bikes and cars have looked at, and kind of you get to see good stuff. That's going to be a good thing, isn't it? Surely being served a world where you get stuff you're interested in is great. But if you only get served the stuff you're interested in, you end up with a lot of really far right and far left views where you live in, and it's been proven many times, you live in a microcosm of information where you basically believe the world is this way because everything you see in the world is that way, which is terrible for civilization. And so I think it's really hard to balance personalization versus actually opening your eyes and actually seeing the world for how it is.
I debate with my dad all the time. Most of the context is around those last questions. It's a little bit scary, I think.
Yes.
I agree. Where do you get Tom, for example? If everything is, Tom fed through to you, where's the activity?
Exactly.
Any other questions?
How do you think AI is going to make the FC more efficient and leaner? Where do you think you could see jobs being removed?
So I think most of it, some of it is in the way you walk. So we've worked out. I think there's we can further optimise the way you walk because walking is actually quite a large part of the picking process. You'll see if I'm going to the tour later the new sortation machine. I'm not going to pretend it uses advanced artificial intelligence, but it does have some learning that a machine uses to work out which stuff goes in what shoe based on certain rules and criteria of weights and dimensions and everything else. So I found it's really interesting. Ocado spent a lot of money fully automating everything. They've got a machine that picks grapes. If you watch it pick grapes, it's painstakingly slow. It's a £250,000 machine, and I just think a human would do that so much faster for not that much money. But then again, is a human being employed to pick grapes all day on minimum wage? Is that a good career in life? Maybe it's good that the machine's been put in to do that. So there's a real balance I think, in automation of the fulfillment centres. I think if we go to what they call dark stores, or where in theory the lights are off, they're not really, but they're fully automated. I'm not sure that's a good world to go to either. But the Industrial Revolution is a good example where we got rid of a lot of people that did a lot of really terribly dangerous jobs, and we replaced it with call centres. I don't know what's working in the company. Any other questions or comments?
Can you just edit that bit out?
We don't have call centres. We have a client services team working in a lovely office. Anyone wants to debate it further, happy to pick it up. If anyone's got any questions for Tom, are you sticking around for the next 15 minutes or so? Yeah, happy to answer that. Otherwise, this wasn't my presentation. I can only take credit for saying the words, but thank you very much for coming.